Good morning. Welcome to Ava's ArtReach Live Zoom. Before the program gets started, I would like to thank the Mount Rushmore Foundation and the Mascoma Bank Foundation for generously funding ArtReach each week so it can be free for everybody to enjoy. Today, we're excited to be joined by printmaker, educator, and sculptor Mary Mead. And she's going to be demonstrating a variety of printmaking processes, including monotype and relief printing. She'll be also showing us how we can use these processes for everyday purposes, namely for the holidays and beyond with card making. So without further introductions, let's turn it over to Mary and we'll get into the demo. This week, our ArtReach was pre-recorded, but we'll be back to live ArtReach demonstrations and studio visits as well next week. But for now, let's turn it over to Mary Mead and get into the demonstration. Here with Mary Mead in the print shop, and she is going to do a demo for us with card making, but kind of including some printmaking processes with it. And she has some examples here that she is going to show you and talk a little bit of the process. So here's Mary Mead.
Great, so Mike asked me to do this, and to be honest with you, full disclosure, I'm not crafty. I'm a printmaker, and which is different. So I thought, let's see, how am I going to approach this? I'll try to bring some printmaking processes into it. And the first one I thought I'd show you that you could do at home with very minimal equipment is a trace monotype. And what I did was I just went online, and you are welcome to make your own, you could make your own patterns. But I found these wonderful snowflake designs, and I printed them out. And so I'm going to use this one today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink the back with this, not necessarily a color of a snowflake, but for me that doesn't really so much matter. We all could buy traditional holiday cards if we wanted to, right? So we're not interested in that. So with a trace monotype, I've just covered the back. You can cover it with oil-based inks or even oil-based paints, okay? So I'm just gonna stick that right there. I'm gonna try to keep my hands off it. I'm gonna take a little pencil and I'm gonna start tracing this from the back, and I'm okay. It doesn't have to fill in all the things. I've always told my students if they're working in linoleum or that I like to see the touch of the artist. I like to see the little bit of noise that's left if you're doing a woodcut, for example.
You don't want everything to be perfect, right?
No, we have Photoshop for that, right? So I'm just drawing all these areas here. I'm transferring the ink on the other side to the card. We're using Akua inks, which are made of a soy-based oil product. They dry through absorption into your paper. So it is best to use a paper that is somewhat absorbent. Otherwise it takes forever for them to dry. Unlike an etching ink, which dries through the evaporation process.
And Mary, what's the difference between a monotype and, say, a regular print?
So this is, so a monotype is a unique print. So it can't be duplicated because there's a unique matrix. But a mono print would be when you have a matrix, and each print is based on that, but let's say you do them all in different colors. Now in this case, one could almost say this is a trace mono print, because if I do it again, I'm going to use the same pattern.
That snowflake.
Yeah, there's the snowflake. So let's peel this up and see what we've got.
Boom, look at that.
Oh, isn't that beautiful? And you could have done just the outline, but it's kind of interesting and unique. You could come in if you wanted to and do some watercolor, or just leave it like this, kind of this wonderful star-like shape, seeing it in a different way. Here's one I did with another one. Now this little noise that you get here is because these inks tend to be kind of loose. They're not very viscous. If you were to use an oil-based painting ink, you wouldn't have quite as much of this.
Can you do this with anything other than printmaking inks?
Absolutely. So that's one fun process. And of course I can put this on top. Let's see what happens if where's one of my cards? I wonder if I could put this down like this. And if let me go get one tool. If we can transfer what's on there. No guarantees, right? It's all experimentation. If I hadn't done the pencil, you would have been able to see a little bit more of the image. Not as successful, but it's fun playing around.
Interesting textures for sure.
Yeah, but I think if I hadn't penciled. Now what I might do is put a different color on here, maybe print over and kind of hide what I don't like. So I would approach these with a certain amount of freedom, right? Yeah, so that's one process you might want to try. Okay, so the next process, which is probably what more traditional, would be a linoleum cut Christmas card. You've probably seen a lot of them, maybe even received them, I don't know. But we have a dry mount press here, and this softens up this battleship gray linoleum. This has a tendency over time to get very, very hard. And if it gets hard, that makes it dangerous, because you could push the linoleum tool into your self. All right, so again, because I'm sort of crazy about snowflakes being a skier, you want to get a nice piece of, got these things, this carbon paper you can use over and over and over. So here, let me just cut this. I don't too much overlap, and I know what I'm doing. Remember, with carbon paper, you can use it over and over again. Okay, so again, let's do a very simple shape. There we go. I just want to know what I'm cutting. This is kind of, I suppose you could call it cheating, but.
No cheating in art.
That's right. Cheating and stealing, that's our middle name. I'm not being exact because I just want to know.
Because perfection is boring.
Perfection is boring. And look what we have here. Now notice, you can use these things over and over and over again. So now I'm going to take my tool. I'm going to get rid of all the excess. Should almost do this on a time lapse. I'm going to go get a bench hook and another tool. Let me go get another tool. So this is a bench hook, which you use so you don't put this through your fingers or your hand, which really hurts. There's always someone who's going to do it. They don't believe me.
So it happens.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to
Work smart, not hard.
right. Just going to shrink this down. went to visit an artist at an open house the other day, and he had done huge 30 by 40 linoleum cuts. They were absolutely stunning.
Which artist is that, Mary? Which artist is that?
Bill Cass.
Bill Cass. Phenomenal printmaker.
An incredible printmaker, lithographer principally, but some people think of linoleum as kind of something you do in elementary school and then you never see it again, but that's not true. The reduction process was invented by Picasso himself. So don't dismiss linoleum. I'm gonna have to heat this up again, as you can see. When it's warm, it cuts like butter. You probably notice I don't care which direction I go in. I think that's because what I like most is sort of the sort of lines that I'm leaving here. A certain amount of haste, but we know the precision of snowflakes. I just saw an article showing snowflakes up close. So this doesn't mimic a real snowflake, because a real snowflake is so incredibly precise. Have you seen?
No, are they like geometrically perfect? So like,
they're, yes.
Really? No way. I'll have to take a look at it. It's like seeing I was watching something on like salt crystals and seeing how those form too. It's gorgeous.
They are crystals.
It's beautiful.
Nice crystals. They're magical. Like all of nature. Now look at this little star in the middle. It's gonna look like a crumb, a little bit of crumb cake Santa Claus left on the plate, right? Yeah. Now the beauty of this wonderful linoleum is I can ink it up, which I'll do right now. Yes, and I might ink it up with black. And when you're inking, I think you're gonna have a nice velvet surface. And try to keep the gunk out.
That's the hardest part.
I can see quite a bit more I'd like to take out. You can see my star in there. All right. Oops. So let's go through the press with this. You want to remember which side you're. When I set this press, I need one little piece of plexiglass. Put a little more height so I can get some contact. And that's kind of a guessing game. There we go. So I'm going to flip this over and put it right through. Kind of get the ghosty. I did this in a class for the students to print, and they didn't like it at all. And I thought it was infinitely more interesting. There you go. I might cut away some more, but look, when you do that double print, let me show you another one of that I did of the student edition. There we go. Here's this one. I think we can go back. It looks like a flower. Here's the one I did for a student that I thought became more interesting.
The ghost print.
Yeah. And what she thought had destroyed it.
Art is subjective, isn't it?
That's right. But anyway, that's kind of fun. Now what I might do is just cut away at that again. I may cut a lot of that away using my bench hook.
What do you think the difference between craft and art is, Mary? I mean, craft is definitely art, but we were talking a little bit before about like you're not a crafty person.
Well, I mean, with the advent of Pinterest, you can see the array of people who have creative instincts that have a different end game. They tend to be functional. I always think of craft as functional, and I think particularly regarding ceramics. You know, if you can have coffee out of it, it may be artful and it may be beautiful, but its intention is
Utilitarian.
Yeah, and
yeah.
you know,
Cool.
it's intention, right? So that's why
I'm
I
making
say
a
I'm not
Christmas
crafty
card.
and I'm not, yeah. And I say that too with great respect because I do know people who have basements filled with craft material, and they are, I don't know if crafty's a negative, I don't think of it that way, but some people are really clever, you know, and they have a little more patience for detail.
I do not.
I have this much. So that's what so this is fun. Anyway, have fun with linoleum. Let's take this other little wood cut this little linoleum cut that I had done. And we'll head over here to the inking table, where I've put decidedly non-Christmas colors, which wasn't my intention. But once the colors started rolling, that's what happened. As usual.
They're wintry colors,
You
though.
know what this would be fun, which would be to do a rainbow roll.
Oh, yeah. You want to show that?
Well, I'd have to put it together, but
Okay.
that might be another way to get all sorts of interesting colors. Okay, let's go over here. Putting it on the right side. Take it through this big, huge press, this little tiny. Says it feels squeezed. Let's just, there's a little ink on there. Let's just keep it going. So I'm taking a little bit of the leftover ink to get a little variety. And I might try another color. Put something over here, maybe some green. And look how I'm not necessarily being religious about keeping these colors separate. We're just having fun here today. So there. Taking my green snowflake. And let's just put it here. Make sure your hands don't get crushed. I think you could probably do this at home with just a roller, you know, in the kitchen. So that seems kind of similar, doesn't it? I'm just getting a little newspaper. pulling off a little bit of this ink. There we go. I'm not sure how successful. Oh, here's where the real action is.
That's the winner.
That's the winner. So let's just do that. So we had some extra ink on this one and it didn't seem that interesting. So let's see if we can't put that print on this piece. And I put this down because I don't want to move the roller. It's too much work. There, nice pressure. As you can see how I'm working, one thing leads to another, I'm not. It's a little lighter. I think a little more pressure could bring some off. Yep. So whether or not we want to do that. Let's see what happens. I used to work with a colleague named Bert Yarborough, who was a printmaker. He'd say, "Get the ghost, get the ghost." A little more interesting. I like that actually. Let's send that to my dear Aunt Helen.
There you go. Love it.
Who died in 1930.
Okay, fair.
I don't know.
Paper.
So one thing when I was thinking and playing around with this, I thought about weaving these old prints. What do you do? We all of us printmakers have tons of prints that fill our drawers. Some of them great prints, some of them remnants, some of them failed prints, some of them unfinished prints, but why let them languish? Because it's all really good paper. So I had this idea that I would just weave through this card some of these beautiful prints, and not being particularly clever. So let me see, I'm just gonna start there. And I'm gonna try to keep them straight. Now, if you're meticulous, you're watching the wrong show. Many people are meticulous. Years ago, I knew a bookmaker named Claire Van Vliet, and I believe she is still alive, albeit well into her 90s. She won a MacArthur grant for the books that she is able to produce up in Newark, Vermont. Absolutely stunning books, all involving folding and what happened here? Okay, so let's just try to weave this through. I think I need to open that up a little bit, don't I? A little bit further down. I went through a phase once where I was sewing all of my prints. It didn't last long because the machine broke, but it was kind of fun and curious to do that. Let's put another one over here. Maybe this nice bright red one. Kind of simple.
Nice little abstract.
Yeah. And I suppose you could continue this. Maybe we could make something that we could put on top of into our card. Or maybe have the card open up and you find this special woven image. I guess my point is, once you get started, you can just play all day, right? Doesn't it make you want to go home and start making cards, Mike?
Like nothing else in the world. No, this is a fantastic process, right? Yeah, and there is something about printmaking that, you know, once you start it, it's just like it takes on a life of its own sometimes.
It does.
The unexpected discoveries
Absolutely.
that you find.
Now, what I use for adhesion is the Yes paste, which I bought down when I was down at the museum school. So let's cut this. This is too big. The museum school has a wonderful art supply store. And I go down there and I buy beautiful, beautiful papers.
Look at that.
Wouldn't that be a beautiful card?
Now that does actually make me want to make some cards.
Right? I think I'm gonna glue this together and send it to somebody. Anyway, be playful. It's the holiday season. There you go.
Look at that. Move that down, send it. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for showing this process and definitely, rethinking what a holiday card could be. Do you have any inspirational words for people as they're moseying into the holidays?
Yeah, just don't be fearful. Just dive right in and have some fun. These are certainly very accessible processes for you. And you might find something unexpected happened. And then you can share it with people you love.